Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of For the Win Offseason Grades. I'm Evan Thorpe. This is our lead NFL writer, Stephen Ruiz. And today we'll be looking at the AFC North, starting with the team that everybody is falling in love with, the Cleveland Browns. You know they got one of the best wide receivers in the league with Odell Beckham. They also added pretty much any offensive weapon they can get, and they bolster up their defense. Stephen, is this team as attractive as the offseason moves make them look?
Yeah, I think so. I think they're definitely Super Bowl contenders. This team is built to pass, and they're built to stop the pass, and that's how you win in today's NFL. The Odell Beckham trade was a good one. They acquired Olivier Vernon, a great pass rusher, and then Sheldon Richardson, I think, is an underrated pickup. He also bolsters the pass rush. And then they didn't have a first-round pick because of the Odell Beckham trade, but they still landed my top corner in the class in Greedy Williams. That's basically a first-round pick. So I think they're the most improved team in this division. But I will say, I think they are kind of rushing things. They've tried to add as much talent as possible during Baker Mayfield's rookie contract window. And I think that might hurt them down the line when it's time to pay Mayfield, and then you have all these stars coming to the end of their deal. And they're really going to have to rely on drafting well, which we know is always difficult to do.
All right, so what do you grade their offseason?
I'm going to give them a B+. Like I said, they are very much improved. I would say they're a Super Bowl contender as soon as next year. But like I said, I think they're rushing things, which, kind of knocks their grade down just a peg.
All right, the team that actually won this division last year, the Baltimore Ravens, they are building around their young quarterback. They had a lot of veterans leave in free agency, but they picked up arguably one of the best free agents in Earl Thomas. Do you think this team can continue to lead this division, or are they going to take some steps back?
Yeah, I think they're definitely going to take a step back, but I think that's by design. They realized they had two choices. Either we're going to stick with this veteran core, or we're going to kind of rebuild on the fly, and I think it was smart to rebuild on the fly. They get rid of Terrell Suggs. They get rid of C.J. Mosley, he got overpaid by the Jets. Eric Weddle, who they replaced with Earl Thomas, who I thought was the best free agent on the market. And then they added a guy like Mark Ingram, and they didn't overspend for him like the Jets did with Le'Veon Bell. I think he's going to help their run game, which they're going to be built to run with Lamar Jackson as a run threat. And then you add a deep threat like Hollywood Brown in the draft, who is going to, stop defenses from loading up the boxes. If they do, and they leave him one-on-one outside, that's a touchdown every time. I think they're worse off than they were a year ago, but down the line, this offseason is really going to benefit them.
All right, so how can you grade them even though they're worse off, but they're still somewhat good?
Yeah, I think it was just a bunch of smart moves in a row, so I'm going to give them a B. I can't give them an A because they did take a step back, but I love their offseason.
All right, next up we had a team who year after year was the dominant team in this division, but they have taken their lumps this offseason. The Pittsburgh Steelers lost arguably their two best weapons on offense. Now everything is basically in Juju's hands with Ben Roethlisberger. Are the Steelers still one of these powerhouses in the AFC, let alone in this division?
No, I don't think you can say that. I think they're a tier 2 team in the AFC now, behind the Chiefs, Patriots, even the Browns. You lose Antonio Brown, which I think is a far bigger loss than people are making it out to be. People are saying it's addition by subtraction, but I don't see it that way. Antonio Brown wasn't really a headache until December of last year. Before that, he was the best receiver in the league. I think he's going to continue to be a top receiver. And then the Le'Veon Bell loss, I don't think that's really an issue. They still have James Conner, but they didn't really add anything this offseason. They add Steven Nelson, who's an okay cornerback. He's not going to solve their cornerback issues. They draft Devin Bush, a linebacker, and they traded up to get him. I understand why they did. They needed to replace Ryan Shazier, and he's the perfect linebacker to do that. I just don't know if he's that big of a difference maker at the linebacker position.
I mean, they re-signed Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, and that's a risk. They gave him $30 million a year, and he's never been a quarterback that really has stayed in shape his whole career. So you can't compare him to like Drew Brees and Tom Brady. These guys that just put so much work into their body. Yeah, they lasted beyond age 40, but I don't know if Roethlisberger is, and he's taken a lot of hits, so you could start to see signs of decline this year.
All right, so with the losses, what do you give the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I'm going to give them a C+. I think the Antonio Brown loss is obviously a problem, but they were kind of forced into that trade just because of the drama between him and Ben. And then all their other losses are fine, whatever. They won't make a big difference. I think they took a step back, but not a major step back.
Last, we have probably the least interesting team in this whole division. The Cincinnati Bengals, they only lost two players. but they were spending money on everybody who's available. What do you have to say about the Bengals?
Yeah, they had a boring offseason. Like, their biggest offseason signing was a guy named John Miller. And have you ever heard of John Miller? No, one has. That's the answer to the question. And they re-signed a bunch of their own guys like Preston Brown, Darqueze Dennard, and then Bobby Hart, which was an interesting signing because he wasn't very good last year. I kind of like their draft. They got Jonah Williams in the first round. I thought he was the best tackle available, but after that, it kind of went downhill. You add Drew Sample, who's a blocking tight end in the second round. I didn't really like that pick. But at the same time, they didn't really lose anyone either. They lost Vontaze Burfict, but they were probably going to lose him to suspension anyway if he stayed on the team. And then you lose Michael Johnson, who he's still a free agent. Maybe he'll come back to the Bengals. It was just a boring offseason, and the Bengals right now are just a boring team. They started over by firing Marvin Lewis, but the roster is still the same. I don't think much is going to change, and they're just a team that's stuck until the end of Andy Dalton's contract, and then from then on, they'll get a new quarterback, and then we'll start to see them build their roster up, I think.
All right, what's your grade for this boring offseason?
I gave them a D+, but it doesn't really matter. Who cares?
All right, so let's go into some three-point stands. Who had the best pickup this offseason?
I'm going to go with the Ravens. We already covered it. Earl Thomas. I think he's a defensive changing talent. That's rare at the safety position. Everyone's always looking for that center field safety that allows you to drop another player into the box, and he's that. He can cover all over the field. I know he's been hurt in recent years, but when he has been played, he's showing no signs of decline. I think he makes that secondary better than it was even a year ago.
All right, who had the worst move this offseason?
It's got to be the Steelers, losing Antonio Brown. I know they were backed into a corner with it, but you only get a third and a fifth when you're trading arguably the best receiver of this generation. You can't defend that in any way.
You saw what the Giants got for Odell.
Right. The Giants get a first-round pick, and you only get a third and a fifth. Yeah, it's got to be the Steelers.
All right. Underrated move by a team this offseason.
This is going to surprise you, but the Bengals sticking with Andy Dalton for one more year. He's walking off set. But let me explain. He didn't even let me explain. Andy Dalton is not a bad quarterback. I would argue he's an above-average quarterback. And how often do you see an above-average quarterback paid like an above-average quarterback when he's on a veteran deal? It doesn't happen. Like, you take a guy like Derek Carr. He's an average quarterback getting paid like an elite quarterback. If you're getting what you're paid for in Andy Dalton, which I think is a smart move, and they can move on from him next year and start over at quarterback. I like the move.
Are you done?
Yeah, are you going to come back and wrap the video up?
Nope. I'm Evan Thorpe, out of picture. This is Steven Ruiz, and that was one of the dumbest takes all year. See you guys next week.